Unexpected call in Russian surprises CEO, you won't believe what happened to her baby next day. Samantha Wells paced her sleek office, skyscrapers towering around her like titans, their golden lights reflecting the burning ambition in her chest. The phone rang, an unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. In every instinct, she sensed something monumental impending, but the sudden rush of Russian on the other end caught her off guard. Flashes of familial faces washed over her. A long-lost relative. The promise of a hidden inheritance. Could this be the game-changer for her tech startup while still threading humanity through her life's intricate fabric? She felt the weight of her aspirations, the stakes ratcheting higher as she balanced her dreams against the unyielding reality of being a single mother to little Noah. Torn and elevated, she hung up, adrenaline coursing through her veins. But the thrill was short-lived, reality clawed back quickly enough. Late that night, as she cradled Noah, his tiny body suddenly grew warm and faint. Panic rose like bile. What if it was serious? What if this jeopardized everything? Could she save both her company and her son? Self-doubt crept in. What kind of mother was she, more concerned with business secrets than her child's cries? She felt unbearably split, battling societal judgment at every corner, even in the sterile glow of the hospital lights. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The hospital's fluorescent lights cast a clinical glare on her increasingly frayed nerves. As she waited, surrounded by sterile rooms and whispered conversations, Samantha feared the inevitable. Would medical staff scrutinize her resolve? Did they see a capable CEO or merely a single mother who couldn't juggle it all? She could feel the cold judgment hanging in the air, weighing her down further. With each ticking second, she recalled her father's legacy, a brilliance that had turned to ashes. That fear nestled at her core. Had she inherited his genius, or the faults that drove him away? A glance over at Noah, small and fragile, rocked her to her core. The fight within flickered as she contemplated her next move. Would she dare pursue the family connection that had surfaced? The phone call seemed so distant now. A potential solution devolved into mere distraction as she faced the ultimate crossroads. The doctors hurried in and out. Each hurried glance from them tightened the vice around her heart. Could she keep Noah safe and still preserve her ambitions? Trapped by this gnawing anguish, she understood her legacy was not just being a mother but also what she chose to embrace from her past, the opportunity before her calling and pulling her in two different directions. Little Noah stirred softly in his bed. She had to decide. Would she fight for her son and self, or disappear into either a fractured past or a haunting future? And as frantic voices echoed through the sterile hallways, Samantha clenched her fists, logo of her company engraved in her mind, asking the only question that mattered: could the strength of her lineage save her son? The answer hung like suffocating fog. Samantha's heart raced, each thump resonating with the urgency and chaos around her. The sterile hospital environment felt suffocating, the buzzing machines echoing trails of doubt. She held Noah's small, fragile hand, clinging to the warmth that reassured her of his presence. What would happen if she lost him? Could she bear that weight again, like the burden her father left behind? A nurse approached, clipboard in hand, a mix of empathy and professionalism radiating from her. "Ms. Wells, we need to run a few tests. It's standard procedure." The words were meant to calm, yet they twisted a knife in Samantha's gut. Standard or not, beneath them lurked the specter of the unknown. What if this led to an irreversible change in her life? As she nodded, the nurse gestured towards the waiting area. Left alone with her fears, a single thought surged above the rest: she couldn't wait for others to decide her fate. Even as a child, she'd felt the pull to carve her own path. This was no different, but with Noah now at the center of her transformation, the risks felt almost insurmountable. What if the inheritance linked to that fateful phone call could provide the cushion she needed, the financial boost for her company that could release her from this anxiety? The negotiations at work weighed heavily on her mind, as they had been dangling a precarious deal with a major investor. Faith was never easy for her, doubt had trained her to expect the worst. But what if the call she received held keys to untapped potential? The realization that her family's history might not just haunt her, but could also empower her, was an exhilarating mix of emotions. The thought perked her resolve, but would that make her a better mother or a better CEO? A brief flurry of movement caught her eye. The doctor arrived, clipboard pressed to an impatient hip. "Ms. Wells, Noah's stable now, but we need some tests to understand what caused his fever." The assurance was like a life raft thrown into turbulent waters. Yet, hope had never come without strings attached. Samantha's mind began calculating probabilities as the doctor went on explaining the process. "Might take some time, but I assure you we'll keep you informed every step of the way." In her heart, Samantha felt an inner shift. The tide of despair was turning. Could she channel her fear into fuel? This was a moment calling for action, not helplessness. Each test completed could translate into understanding and clarity for both Noah and her emerging path. "I need you to be strong for him," she managed to whisper, though the words were for herself as much as for Noah. Could she turn her turmoil into tenacity? In that instant, the idea crystallized like the first sharp edge in software code that fixed a programming flaw. Her stakeholders needed her presence, but her son needed her heart. She'd tread both worlds, confronting her career while protecting Noah. The potential of that call, alongside the reality awaiting her in the boardroom, ignited a spark deep within. As she steeled herself mentally for the next steps, her pulse quickened. Every second she spent in uncertainty about herself when decisions loomed felt like a luxury each time she measured the stakes. She needed to unearth the hidden strength within her lineage and forge ahead despite the chaotic flickers of doubt. But what if the Russian connection concealed even more dark secrets, ones that could thwart her hard-won sacrifices? The question lingered, a heavy weight wrapped around her resolve. She stood up slowly, brushing her fears against the edges of ambition. A decision awaited, and the path forward was riddled with unknowns. Taking a long breath, Samantha prepared herself for the conversations that lay ahead. The moment of truth beckoned, pushing her towards the inevitable confrontation with the forces that had shaped her destiny. Would ultimately confronting her family's legacy empower her child and her career, or unravel everything she'd worked for? One thing was certain: the fight was only just beginning. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly as Samantha paced the small waiting area, her heart still pounding with residual fear. The sterile hallways of the hospital amplified her thoughts, blurring the lines between her responsibilities as a mother and her ambitions as a CEO. Each step felt heavy, but determination coursed through her veins. She needed clarity, both for herself and for Noah. As she sat down momentarily, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Her instinct had been right. It was a call from her business partner, Mark, always eager to update. Taking a breath, she answered. "Mark? Samantha, we need to discuss the investor meeting. They're sensing hesitation, and this is our moment to capitalize. What's your plan?" His voice was energetic, tinged with urgency. The gravity of her situation sat between them in the silence that followed his question. "I'll be there," she said, her voice more confident than she felt. "But we have to address the weaknesses in our pitch. We can't afford slip-ups. Not this time." "Understood. But you have to be committed, Sam. We can't bring uncertainty into this." His words nudged at the lingering self-doubt. She had always battled with the oscillation between career ambition and maternal instinct, a dichotomy she feared might fracture under pressure. "I'll prepare a solid presentation. I just need to focus right now on Noah's health." As she hung up, a wave of resolve washed over her. Engaging in this duality wouldn't lessen her ability, it would amplify it. The determined woman from her childhood, who so fiercely yearned for independence, had returned. She would become a force in the boardroom and a shield for her son. The minutes dragged painfully as she waited, her mind racing through the implications of her family's hidden past and the potential it held for both her and her son. Could the inheritance be the lifeline she so desperately needed, potentially enabling a merger that could secure her company's future? Recalling the phone call that had initially stirred this possibility, she couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental awaited her beyond these walls. Finally, a nurse approached, breaking her reverie. "Ms. Wells, you can see Noah now." Her voice was calm, yet warned of uncertainty. Samantha nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat, and followed her to the room. Stepping inside, she saw Noah lying on the hospital bed, his small form defined by the stark white sheets. He was resting, but the monitors beeped steadily, grounding her in the moment. All doubt evaporated as she approached him, placing her hand gently on his forehead. There was a warmth, a pulse of life that reassured her he was still here, still fighting. In that instant, a flicker of clarity crossed her mind. She needed to communicate with the Russian contact. They held answers she hadn't yet discovered and potential leverage she couldn't ignore. Whatever their connection to her family was, she had to face it with courage, not just for her father's sake, but for Noah's. The opportunity was ripe. She could redefine her family's legacy rather than succumb to its burdens. As she cradled Noah's hand, she whispered promises of strength and resolve, forging a silent pact with him. "We're getting through this together, and I won't falter," she vowed. A deep breath steadied her nerves. A decision loomed like a hanging shadow, beckoning her to face the unknown, forcing her to confront both her past and future head-on. Would the truth behind the corrupted ties of her lineage become the catalyst for her growth, or would it merely pull her deeper into chaos? With questions unresolved and paths unfurling before her, Samantha knew one thing: she was ready to fight for her son and her legacy. The next steps awaited her, heavy yet exhilarating, and she was determined to seize them with unwavering resolve. Samantha settled into the stiff chair beside Noah's bed, absorbing the sounds of the hospital room, the rhythmic beeping of the monitor, the distant echoes of hurried nurses, and the faint smell of antiseptic. It felt like a crucible, combining her maternal instincts and her professional aspirations into something potent. Her thoughts whirled around the impending investor meeting. Mark's insistence on her commitment gnawed at her. Could she really bring her A-game to the table while her son fought a battle for his health? Yet, the thought of underperforming, of letting her team down after countless hours of early mornings and late nights, ignited a flicker of fury within her. She had to channel this fire. For a moment, she allowed herself to drift from the present, envisioning what the meeting would look like. She could see the room filled with anxious investors, their faces reflecting anticipation and skepticism, waiting for her to dismantle their doubts. They needed confidence, and she had to exude it, not just for her company, but for Noah. He was her reason, a reminder of why she couldn't afford to fail. Taking in a deep breath, she closed her eyes and let the vision settle. She thought of her material, the data she had painstakingly pieced together, the compelling narrative she crafted to highlight her business's innovations. In that moment, she realized there was a connection between her personal fight for Noah's well-being and her professional struggle for her company's survival. Each depended on her ability to confront fear and uncertainty head-on. The stillness in the hospital room shattered as Noah shifted in his sleep. His tiny hand instinctively gripped hers, a lifeline that seemed to spark further resolve. Looking down at him, she thought of all the times she had to make tough decisions as CEO. Those moments had demanded conviction, yet here she was, weighed down by emotional chaos. Shouldering the weight of responsibility, she felt the stirrings of her long-dormant strategic mindset. She wouldn't merely witness her life unfold, she would shape it. The Russian contact offered a pathway, a disruption she needed. This was no time for half measures. She had to gather courage and confront whatever secrets lay buried within their connection to her family. Samantha visualized the conversation she would have with Mark in the morning. She would share not just her strategies but also her motivations, revealing her plan to incorporate the new chilling reality of her heritage into their pitch. It was both liberating and terrifying to contemplate, but she understood that authenticity would be her strongest asset in that room filled with skeptics. The light outside the window dimmed as evening approached. The exhaustion weighed heavily on her, but she continued to sit there, absorbed in thought. It was a crossroads where personal sacrifice danced with professional ambition, and for the first time, she believed both could coexist. When the nurse re-entered the room, bringing a clipboard of routine checks, a sense of urgency surged in Samantha. "I need to know more about the Russian contacts. I'll reach out to them once I leave and delve deeper into their offer," she resolved quietly, as if cementing her strategy in the air. As the nurse moved to check Noah's for, Samantha's heart raced. The stakes felt higher than ever. The potential for a monumental shift in her life loomed, frightening but necessary, her son's health and her company's future coalescing in desperate need of her strength. But would the connections she sought grant her the insight and resources she hoped for? Or would navigating through these tumultuous waters deepen her entanglement in chaos? With adrenaline thrumming through her veins, Samantha felt the force of possibility building within her. Tomorrow could be the day she stepped into a brand new world, one infused with both risk and unprecedented opportunity. She closed her eyes, willing herself to embrace whatever the future held, knowing that she was ready to confront the truths that had long remained unseen. The hour hand of the clock crept forward, and with it came the impending sense of change. Would she have the courage to embrace it? The battle for Noah's health was only the first step in a far greater conflict that she was just beginning to understand. Samantha awoke with a start as the morning light spilled through the window, illuminating the hospital room in a cold, sterile glow. She glanced at Noah, still asleep, his chest rising and falling gently beneath the white blanket. A part of her wished to remain in this bubble of stillness, where nothing existed outside these hospital walls, but time was not her ally. Steeling herself, she mentally reviewed her plan. After the night's reflections and the simmering rush of urgency, she resolved to take a leap, a new direction for both her professional and personal life. She had to tap into her roots, confront the implications of her heritage, and rise above the chaos that's surrounding her. As she prepared to confront Mark about the investment meeting, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the Russian contact, a single sentence that read, "We need to talk. Urgently." Anxiety churned in her stomach. They had only scratched the surface of whatever venture they were about to propose, but Samantha felt the boundaries of her professional world pushing inward. The potential meeting could offer new insights, valuable ones, but at what cost? Focused on Noah's well-being, she pushed the thought aside as she headed to the cafeteria for her usual coffee. Yet, as she sipped the bitter brew, her mind wrestled with a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. Should she prioritize the meeting or her son? The question churned until it crystallized. Noah's health could not come second to any professional obligation. She needed to embody that strength. Maybe in doing so, she would find the resolve to also pursue her career ambitions. When she returned to Noah's room, the nurse was finishing her rounds. Looking at her son, Samantha pressed her lips together, willing herself to focus on the tangible aspects of his care. This required her utmost concentration and a fierce clarity that began to echo through her mind as she plotted her path. The nurse caught her eye with a knowing smile, perhaps sensing the turmoil within. "You're doing a great job. It's tough, but he needs you strong," she said softly. In that moment, a spark of clarity arrived, illuminating the necessity of her dual commitments. She would channel her fears into a focused strategy, not just a reactionary stance, but a calculated one to bring her vision to life. Leaning closer to Noah, she whispered promises of bravery and determination, her voice a mere murmur against the backdrop of sterile machinery. During the day's lull, while Noah slept, Samantha pulled up her business notes on her laptop. The data was solid, the projections promising. But she needed a narrative that resonated on a personal level, something that would engage even the toughest investor seated across from her. With every keystroke, she began crafting her story, distancing herself from the guise of a cold CEO and revealing her vulnerabilities as a mother. A click from her phone interrupted her flow. It was Mark, reminding her about their upcoming meeting. The time had come to face not only the investors but also herself. Could she present her truth without being overwhelmed? The thought tightened her chest, but she was resolute. Walking back to Noah's bedside, she took a deep breath. "Tomorrow, I will show them who I am," she promised him softly. "For both of us." As night descended, so did a dark cloud of doubt. Her wound of familiarity with loss gnawed at her. The stakes felt impossibly high, balancing her intimate fears against the professional ambitions that now thrust at her like daggers. Still, a flicker of excitement surged through her veins as she grasped the need to integrate her newfound resolve into her pitch. It was more than just a business meeting, it was a chance to reclaim her narrative. But in the depths of her thoughts, a question lingered: would the authenticity she sought resonate in a world that often disregarded personal stories in favor of cold metrics? Her heart raced at the thought of exposure, of laying bare her soul to a room full of skeptics. With that tension thick in the air, Samantha prepared to confront a reality that intertwined and blurred the lines of past and future, chaos and opportunity. Tomorrow promised to test the very limits of her courage. Yet a new email notification drew her gaze back to her screen, a message from the Russian contact, remarkable in its urgency. "We can help save him." What began as a business proposition now hinted at a deeper connection. Would her exploration of her heritage intertwine with the fate of her son? Tomorrow would bring answers and possibly even more questions. The morning dawned with an intensity that mirrored the chaos within Samantha. As she stood at Noah's bedside, she could feel the weight of the impending meeting pressing down on her. It was a precarious balancing act, the stakes for her personal life and professional ambitions felt inextricably linked, and every breath she took prompted 1,000 thoughts about what lay ahead. Noah stirred, and as she lovingly brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead, she felt a fierce determination ignite within her. This wasn't just about business, it was about manifesting a vision that could secure his future. She had spent years building a facade of corporate prowess, avoiding the personal stakes that came with leadership. But now, standing here, she understood that her deepest vulnerabilities could be her greatest assets. Yet, the clock was ticking. Mark's constant reminders rang in her ears, punctuated by the nagging email from her Russian contact that tantalized with its implications. "We can help save him." The unexpected offer lingered in her mind, stirring fears of entanglements she could neither anticipate nor control. Could someone from her heritage truly bring aid, or was this simply a ruse to ensnare her into a deal fraught with ethical dilemmas? She wrestled with the thoughts as an unnerving realization struck her: her identity as a mother now intertwined with her ambitions. She had to meet this challenge head-on, no more hiding behind cold calculations. Utilizing the quiet moments while Noah drifted in and out of sleep, she plunged into research. She learned about past investments, uncovering trends that resonated with her experience. Numbers transformed into stories as she began to map out how her life experiences could align with her pitch. It was illuminating to see her narrative unfolding, one that presented her vulnerabilities as invaluable assets rather than weaknesses. When she spoke at last with Mark, her tone was resolute. "You need to understand something crucial," she said, her heart hammering as she prepared to divulge the humanity behind her numbers. "My son is my priority, and every decision I make will reflect that. We have to align our goals in a meaningful way." Mark's surprised silence attested to the power of her confession. "I didn't realize how personal this matter was for you, Samantha," he said eventually. In that exchange, something shifted. Mark, the frigid investor who saw numbers as just that, numbers, was confronted with a raw human element. Perhaps he could be swayed, and motivation could bloom from more than charts and statistics. Later that day, standing before the conference room filled with expectant investors, her heart pounded in her chest. The room was a crisp expanse of polished wood and glaring lights, every eye focused on her. She could feel vulnerability tremble at the edge of her words. Today, I stand before you as more than just a CEO, she began steadily despite her racing pulse. I'm a mother, and my son's future is at stake. The silence was palpable. She let her gaze sweep across their faces, searching for a flicker of understanding amid their restrained expressions. Each sentence crafted became imbued with her story, intertwining her professional vision with the love and hope she harbored for Noah. As the pitch unfolded, she could sense a shift, a subtle yet powerful connection forming between her and the audience. Ideas that flowed from her heart resonated at a human level, stripping away the fear of exposure and revealing the strength behind her authenticity. But just as she felt the momentum building, her phone buzzed discreetly against the table. It was another email from the Russian contact, the urgency of its subject line freezing her heart. We must discuss your son's future. There's much at stake. Caught between advancing her mission and the fresh waves of dread that threatened her newfound confidence, Samantha braced herself, aware that the intersection of her personal and professional lives was only beginning. The moment tasted bittersweet, a blend of possibility and uncertainty. A powerful realization hit her: the true test lay not just in divulging who she was, but in forging a path forward that embraced vulnerability while navigating complex terrain. With resolute determination, she prepared for the unexpected challenges ahead. Little did she know, the choices she would make in the next few days would irrevocably alter the course of her and Noah's future. How entwined would her professional battles become with the urgent cries for help echoing from her heritage? As the meeting concluded, the answers loomed just ahead, like shadows held at bay by the light of resolve. The evening air felt thick with uncertainty as Samantha stared at the computer screen, the email glaring back at her like an unwelcome intruder. She clicked it open, her pulse quickening with a complex mix of fear and intrigue. The message was succinct yet potent. Her Russian contact, Elena, had requested an urgent video call to discuss what they could provide for Noah. She could hardly shake off the feeling that engaging with Elena meant stepping into a minefield where one wrong step could lead to disaster. Tentatively, Samantha resolved to connect. Elena's digital face flickered into view, exuding a blend of professionalism and an unsettling familiarity. "Samantha," she began, her voice laced with a thick accent, "I hope you're well. I'm reaching out to discuss how we might help you and your son in this difficult time." Samantha's heart raced. This was a moment of reckoning. She had built a hardened barrier against this side of her heritage, yet deep down, it pulsed with a faint longing for connection. "What exactly do you mean by helping?" she asked, trying to cloak her uncertainty with professionalism. Elena leaned in, her demeanor suddenly serious. "There are resources at our disposal that may be beneficial for Noah. Think of it as an opportunity to leverage your current projects." Samantha hesitated, the prospect of mingling business with her child's future feeling dangerously manipulative. "You're suggesting I use his needs as leverage?" The words left her mouth, sharper than intended. Elena raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Not leverage, influence. You are positioned to create a network that can aid more than just your ambitions. I believe you can connect with individuals who understand your vision." Samantha's mind whirred, contemplating the tangled web ahead. Personal stakes and professional aspirations, how dangerous a game was she being drawn into? Yet, the fleeting image of Noah's smile drove her resolve. He was worth any risk she had to take. Before their conversation concluded, Elena proposed a meeting between several high-profile investors within her circle who understood both the market and the nuanced human elements that accompanied it. Samantha's instincts screamed caution, yet her internal drive drowned out that voice. Accepting this invitation could propel her project forward while securing her son's well-being. After hanging up, she leaned back, the weight of her decision settling like lead in her stomach. Each possibility felt like a high-stakes gamble, the duality of her choice hung over her like a storm cloud. In the following days, she threw herself into intensive preparation, meticulously outlining her vision. She immersed herself in the details, fully aware that every bullet point would be scrutinized by people seasoned in both business and their own ambitions. The morning of the meeting loomed heavy with pressure. As she dressed, the mirror reflected more than a woman donning business attire, it revealed a complex tapestry woven with vulnerability and resolve. She had turned the passion for her son's future into an unwavering fire within her. When she entered the high-rise meeting room, an assembly of powerful figures greeted her, tiresome indeed, but eerily reminiscent of a battleground. Each chair filled embodied a strength she aspired to harness. After all the years of feeling intimidated, now here she was, accepting that her narrative could be more than a lifeline, it could be a conduit for change. As she began her presentation, her heart raced, but an unprecedented clarity surged within her. Each statistic interlaced with anecdotes about Noah wove together an emotional fabric that drew in the investors. She felt them shifting in their chairs, echoing her determination. Just as she began to sense a breakthrough, however, a loud knock came from the door, abruptly slicing through the energy in the room. A staff member whispered urgently to her ear. "Samantha, it's about Noah." Sudden panic sparked through her veins, momentarily paralyzing her resolve. Had her choices led to unforeseen consequences? The crossroads of her professional ambitions and her maternal instincts pulsated with tension, capturing her tightly in a relentless grip. As the door opened wider, a sense of impending revelation loomed, one that threatened to pivot the course of everything she had fought for. What had happened to her son, and was this the price she would ultimately have to pay for merging her two worlds? Samantha's heart hammered against her chest as the door swung open, revealing a frazzled assistant with a look of urgency that shifted everything in the room. The investors around her faded into a blur, their faces contorting with confusion and concern. The only thing she heard was the echo of her own heartbeat. "Excuse me," the assistant said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Noah is in the hospital." Cold dread coiled in Samantha's stomach. The potential business deal evaporated as her mind raced through scenarios, each one darker than the last. The presentation she'd worked tirelessly to prepare flickered and faded, leaving her standing on the precipice of a crisis that could unravel everything she had just fought for. "Noah," she muttered, dragging her gaze from the room filled with powerful executives to the assistant's anxious eyes. Every ounce of ambition seemed to suck away into the air. "What happened? Is he? He's stable, but we need to go now," the assistant interrupted, urgency slicing through the rich fabric of her worry. The room was still, now conspicuously aware that she was slowly unraveling. 1,000 apologies and justifications jostled in her mind, battling for dominance with the overwhelming dread of a mother fearing the worst about her child. I need to leave," she finally managed to say. Reluctance hung heavy in the air as one investor cleared his throat, trying to recover the momentum lost. "Samantha," he said, his tone thick with confusion. "We can reschedule, but this opportunity, it's not just an opportunity. It's Noah," she snapped, the primal need to protect her son overtaking her demeanor. With a hurried exit, she stumbled from the conference room, the clamor of negotiations fading into the distance, replaced by the throbbing pulse of worry. The elevator ride felt endless, the weight of every floor dropping onto her shoulders until she stepped into the brisk daylight, the world harsh and overwhelming outside the plush confines of high finance. Minutes dragged on like hours as she arrived at the hospital, where antiseptic air filled her lungs, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. Her mind raced through the unpredictable chaos of her decision-making, the stakes with Elena, the investors. Everything seemed trivial in that stark white corridor illuminated by unforgiving fluorescent lights. Finally, she found Noah, a small figure encased in the sterile embrace of hospital sheets. Monitors beeped rhythmically, signaling life, but her heart still ached with an unsettling heaviness. He looked up, his eyes barely open, a pale wave of confusion washing over his features. "Mom," he whispered, the vulnerability in his voice slicing through her. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here," she murmured, pushing the hair from his forehead. In that moment, all the ambitions she had harbored dulled and transcended into something quiet and unquantifiable. Samantha's resolve shifted, reshaping itself from one built on competitiveness to one forged in unwavering protection. The choices she had made to advance her career now felt like a series of missteps too complicated to navigate. She had always led her life prioritizing career over family, but now she faced a moment that made everything resound with clarity. The thought of merging her worlds, of allowing Elena's influence into her life, sparked a moment of reckoning. If leveraging her business connections meant risking love, she hesitated on that precipice. Could she truly balance both? A door opened to vast opportunities and yet a fear lingered like smoke in the background. Could she protect Noah in the process? As she sat beside him, holding his hand tightly, the weight of her next decision hung heavily in the air. Where would this crossroads lead her? Was she prepared to play this dangerous game that could manipulate the very fabric of her integrity? That night, a message flashed on her phone, a reminder of the investors waiting for her decisions, urging her to finalize the deal they had discussed earlier in the day. Yet as she glanced back at Noah, a fierce determination ignited within her. In that moment, she knew that the path ahead wasn't just about making deals, it was a chance to redefine what success truly meant. The stakes had never been higher, and as the night drew on, she made a silent promise to herself to navigate this treacherous intersection armed with clarity and purpose, no matter the cost. But just as she thought she had solidified her resolve, a sudden buzz from her phone hinted at Elena's next move, an indirect challenge that could send everything spiraling again. The game was only just beginning. Samantha stared at her phone, the persistent buzzing pulling her from the depths of her thoughts. The message lit up the darkened room, a stark reminder that life didn't pause for personal crises. Elena's name glowed on the screen, a digital embodiment of the tension that had begun to weave itself through her life like an insidious thread. As she considered ignoring the message, a flash of fear gripped her. What if Elena sought to leverage the uncertainty surrounding Noah? The very notion ignited a fire in her, a blazing reminder that she had never been one to relinquish control. They were locked in a delicate dance, each pushing and pulling at the other to hold ground. "Mom, please don't worry too much," Noah's voice broke gently through her inner storm, his small hand squeezing hers weakly. She realized then how deeply intertwined her personal battles were with her professional identity. Had she really been that absorbed in her career, risking precious moments with her son when he needed her most? "I'm trying not to," she said, forcing a steadiness into her voice. But the gnawing anxiety refused to be silenced. She felt that if she didn't respond to Elena, she might lose a grip on the deal that had cost her so much more than just time. Noah's face was pale, and as she looked into his eyes, she could almost see the simple desire for her to be there, her presence a balm to his uncertainty. It struck her poignantly. Did Noah care about that opportunity as much as she did? With a deep breath, she silenced the phone. The choice was made. If she was going to command her life, she needed to do so while remaining steadfast in her legacies as a mother and as a businesswoman. She decided then that her next steps would be strategic, but guided by a nurturing resolve rather than ruthless ambition. "Do you want to watch something on my phone?" she asked, her voice becoming brighter. "Something funny?" "No thanks, just sit with me," he replied, his eyes fluttering shut as he leaned back against his pillows. For the first time in what felt like years, the fragility of her world quieted around her. It wasn't about the investors, the boardroom, or even Elena. It was about Noah, and that simple truth sought to soften the edge of her anxiety. But as she allowed herself a moment's peace, another vibration echoed from her phone. Defying her expectations, it was a notification from the hospital app. A reminder to fill out consent forms for surgery. It felt like the floor dropped out beneath her. Uncertainty crashed down. Would his resilience hold against looming challenges? Did she remain strong enough to face whatever decisions lay in front of her? The implications of that single message lanced through her heart, and the enormity of the moment flooded her with the sharp reminder of her precarious balance. Her thoughts churned. Had she prioritized the wrong battle? Just then, a figure appeared at the door, a doctor with a calm demeanor and an air of authority. There was no time for emotional dissection now, reality swirled around her with dizzying urgency. Whether she was prepared or not, answers were looming. "Ms. Johnson," the doctor said, tapping his pen against his clipboard, "we need to discuss Noah's treatment options." An immediate knot formed in Samantha's chest, tightening with each word. Her promise to redefine success was no longer just a choice but a necessity. As they discussed medical jargon and alternatives, she realized these avenues, their results, the decisions they lead to, could either bind her family closer together or tear them apart. A chilling thought pierced through her, disrupting the fluttering focus she cultivated. If she failed to navigate both the business and her son's health, what would that mean for her? As the conversation unfolded, a sudden wave of clarity swept over her. She was back in control, a seasoned strategist in an unfamiliar war room. The path to merge both worlds began to crystallize. What if she could harness her career skills to advocate fiercely for her son while redefining her approach to Elena? But just as she thought she had devised a plan, the doctor dropped another bombshell, a potential complication in Noah's condition that could change everything. The stakes had risen again, and it felt like the ground was slipping beneath her feet. Samantha steeled herself. This wasn't just a business challenge but a deeply personal battle. She would have to confront not only the reality of Noah's health but also Elena's ambitions. The tightrope she walked grew thinner, but she found a strange comfort in the tension. In that moment, a fierce determination ignited within her. The time had come to face the adversaries on both fronts, the unforgiving hospital corridors and the ruthless boardroom alike. Determining victory was no longer an option, it now felt like an imperative. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice steady and resolute as she faced the doctor, preparing herself to fight, to strategize, and to protect. In that intensity, she understood the true measure of her commitment. The game was escalating, and as each moment ticked away, she had to find a way to navigate this unpredictable battlefield. Would she manage to emerge intact on both fronts, or was she about to lose everything? The answer loomed just out of grasp. The dawn of a new day brought an unmistakable clarity to Samantha. As she sat at Noah's bedside, staring at the faint sunlight breaking through the blinds, she found herself teetering on the edge of a pivotal transformation. The chaos of the past few days crystallized into renewed purpose and unwavering resolve. While the remnants of fear still lingered, reminders of her dual battles with Noah's health and her looming business decisions, she knew she could no longer afford to allow doubt to cloud her vision. Her focus shifted from worry to determination. The knowledge that her son was fighting his own battle inspired her to rise and fuel her ambitions. It was no longer just for herself, but for him. The doctor's words echoed in her mind, and the potential surgery loomed over them like a specter. But instead of panic, a fierce fire ignited within her. What are the best outcomes for him? She found herself asking. Each question made her feel more empowered, more capable of tackling the challenges ahead. The road to recovery for Noah would be arduous, but she could equip herself with knowledge to navigate the storm. After extensive discussions with the doctors, Samantha wasted no time. She engaged in research that encompassed both Noah's medical condition and alternative treatments. Every new piece of knowledge felt like a stepping stone, gradually pushing her toward the convergence she sought between her roles as a mother and CEO. Later that day, aligning her newfound energy with her professional ambitions, she crafted a detailed presentation, not just a business pitch but an encapsulation of her journey as a mother intent on carving out a better future for her son. Her story intertwined the raw emotions of vulnerability with strategies forged in the fires of adversity. The text of her presentations transformed as well. Every statistic on projected revenue was met with anecdotes revealing how her experiences as a single mother had shaped her decision-making process. She shifted her narrative to emphasize resilience against uncertainties. The time for the investor meeting arrived, and as she stepped into the polished conference room, a quiet confidence enveloped her. She began with her heartfelt story, allowing her passion for Noah and her drive for success to light up the room. The silent moments held in between her words seemed to resonate deeply, the listeners captivated by her authenticity. One of the investors, a seasoned entrepreneur named David, interrupted gently. "Samantha, he began, it's evident how much this matters to you personally. The journey you've articulated reflects resilience that could inspire confidence in our partnership. The warmth of their reception ignited something within her. I am not only presenting a business opportunity, she explained further. I'm dedicated to creating a legacy, one that blends my personal courage with professional integrity. With each syllable, she felt barriers lift, doubt float away, and the burdens of past expectations dissipate. No longer was she merely the CEO trying to prove herself, she embodied a mother charging forward, claiming her path. As the meeting unfolded, questions transformed into enthusiastic dialogue. The investors felt the pulse of her ambition. They nodded in understanding, recognizing within her the potential for not just business growth, but innovation rooted in her unique perspective. But in the back of her mind lingered Elena's words, urging her to remember that bridging her family's legacy with her ambitions could prove successful. Her newfound resolve wasn't about spinning webs of leverage but built on fierce love that protected and empowered, love that created unbreakable bonds. The meeting concluded with supportive applause and an agreement from investors to back her vision wholeheartedly. That affirmation brought elation. It was a triumph for not just her career but the promise of a brighter future for Noah. Returning to the hospital, she found her son awake and alert, the monitors now beeping steadily in a pattern of optimism. She quickly shared the news, and a smile broke across Noah's face, brightening the sterile room. "Did you win, Mommy?" he asked, his small hand reaching for hers. "Yes, sweetheart," she said, unable to hide the grin that spread across her face. "We won together." From that moment, Samantha felt the fierce pride swelling within her. The intermingling of dreams and responsibilities no longer felt overwhelming, it invigorated her. Every setback had been a lesson in resilience, every challenge a part of her metamorphosis. The journey was not complete. She was aware of the complexities ahead, but she felt fortified by the understanding that her identity as a dedicated mother intertwined beautifully with her ambitions as a CEO. She was no longer just fighting for survival, she was thriving against the odds, bridging the gap between her personal and professional selves. Tonight, she gently cradled Noah, his warmth against her chest a beautiful reminder of all she had fought for. In their shared embrace, she found both tranquility and drive. They were not merely existing, they were conquering. As the evening sun dipped below the city skyline, casting golden hues against the hospital walls, she thought of the call that had ignited this whirlwind: her late father's legacy, the pursuit of her own identity, and the depth of her resilience. What had once seemed like dual threats now revealed itself as an undeniable symbiosis of perseverance. Samantha owed it to herself to continue forging ahead, to remain vigilant and strive for success in every facet of her life. And with that realization came the ultimate clarity: she had not only embraced her identity, she had conquered it. The path ahead remained uncertain, but she was ready, more than ready, to walk it hand in hand with her beloved son, armed with the strength of their shared journey. Now, dear viewers, this is the moment for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our mission. Comment below your reactions, thoughts, and theories about this spine-tingling conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who truly need to experience this transformation. You need to subscribe now. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our journey through every twist and triumph. Don't wait even one more second to share this with those who need to know. Resilience conquers all.